Hey there. So, I heard you want to get into drawing. Drawing can be a bit hard and frustrating to get into, so I made this video with 5 tips to keep in mind if you're going to begin drawing. Reminder that I am not a professional in the least, and everything I tell you is going to be from experience. Also, this is just a video about tips when getting started into drawing. I'm not actually going to teach you how to draw. So, the first thing I want to tell you is obviously to practice. And I know you've heard this over and over, and every single artist has told you that you have to practice, and you're probably sick of hearing it. But listen, there is absolutely no other way to improve drawing if you don't practice every day. Buy a sketchbook and start filling that out. Or if you're afraid of the commitment that sketchbooks bring you, you can just draw on a bunch of loose pieces of paper and save it in a folder or a box. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. Drawing is really hard and frustrating. But you need to remember that there is not a single person out there who is born knowing how to draw. My favorite art quote is from Aaron Hansen, who happens to be my art and life idol. His quote was, "Drawing is a skill, not a talent." And it's 100% true. You need to remember that every single artist that you admire right now did not start out that way. They put in a lot of hard work, and were obviously very passionate about what they did, and that's how they got here. So keep that in mind when you're beginning, because they were once there too. My second piece of advice is to learn from others. Learn from other artists. Study their style. But don't worry about creating your own style. That comes naturally over time. Many artists make it very clear that they're always willing to help other people, so take advantage of that. It's most likely free, and they're coming from experience. And don't be afraid to use references. There's a lot of confusion between using references and copying/tracing. The difference is that tracing or copying pretty much means that you're tracing over a picture, but referencing means that you're learning from another picture. So you can have the picture side by side with your drawing, but you're not actually going over it, and that's totally okay. Nobody expects you to know how to draw perfectly without looking at something first. And eventually, over time and practice, you're going to be able to memorize how clothing folds and how bodies work, and you're not going to need as many references. But remember to never be ashamed of using them. The best of artists use them. My third piece of advice has to do with feedback. So, if you share your art, either with people you know in person or online, then one day you will most certainly get critiques. These can be a little hard to accept, especially when you're beginning, but you need to learn from early on that you need to accept critiques with grace. If anything, I get extreme secondhand embarrassment when I see an artist not being able to take critiques and become defensive of their work. And I can totally understand that because I was once like that too, but you're gonna receive them whether you ask for them or not. So, the best thing you can do is try to learn from them. And maybe one day, after being a little more experienced, you can ask for critiques. There's always going to be somebody who's willing to give you critiques, and they're very good for your improvement. My fourth point has to do with the worst critic you'll ever have, which is yourself. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. Art is very, very hard and frustrating, and you're probably going to hate it for a very long time. But you need to do your best to not put yourself down. Never compare yourself to others. This is probably going to come off as really harsh, but there's always going to be somebody who's better than you. Always. But don't look at others and compare yourself to them. We all learn at different paces, we all improve at different paces, and we all started at a different time. It might seem a little unfair, especially when somebody's less experienced or somebody's younger than you and they turn out to be better. But do your best to not be jealous and instead be supportive. Treat art and artists as a community. Talk to other artists, learn from them, befriend them, be supportive. We're all in this hellhole together. We all deal with the same problems of artists. We get asked all the same stupid questions, all of us are frustrated with ourselves, and none of us can draw hands. So, we really might as well stick together. The fifth piece of advice is probably one of the most important ones, which is to always save your art. Whether it's in a sketchbook or in a box of loose papers, save it. If it's digital art, save it in a USB drive. You should save your art because you can look back on it later. It records your progress and your improvement. It also works as a type of diary. When I look back at some of my old art, I can remember exactly where I was in that point of time. There are many artists that don't like to look back on their old work because it makes them cringe, and I understand that. But in time, you're going to be able to look back on your work, and instead you're going to admire all the progress that you've made. I can promise you that you will always regret not saving your art. So just save your work. not really a hard of a thing to do. Well, that's all I had for this video. It might have been short and it might have been vague, but to be completely honest, if I was to say everything that was on my mind, this video could end up being an hour long. I'm always willing to answer specific questions, and I might even do videos for specific steps of this video, such as a whole video on critiques or saving your art or whatever. So keep an eye out for that. And to make things easier, you can subscribe because I do these videos every Tuesday, a part of Tutorial Tuesday. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up, or you can comment on it, or you can do both. Both is pretty good. And if you have any requests, just let me know, and I'll try to do a video on that too. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye!